Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to 24 Hours of Past Summit Preview 2016. We're excited you could join us today for Tara Shankar Jana's session, Cloud App Development Immersion. This 24-hour PASS event consists of 24 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the PASS community. The sessions will be recorded and posted online after the event, and to access any on-demand sessions, please visit the 24hoursofpass.com website for all session links. My name is Mindy Cronut. I'm a SQL MVP. I'm very active in the PASS community. I'm one of the PASS Summit program managers for this year. And I have a few introductory slides before I hand over the reins to Tara. So next slide, please. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session, and your feedback is important to us, so please take a moment to complete that. It'll appear in your web browser. Next slide. The staging of 24 Hours of PASS would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, and they are the reason that this event is available free of charge to you. So I'd like to thank Microsoft, Idera, Attunity, HP, and SQL Sentry for their sponsorship. Next slide. Please make sure that you explore everything else that PASS has to offer for data professionals. You can join local user groups around the world, special interest groups, find free online resources through our Learning Center, and read up on the latest community news in the Connector newsletter. All of that is available at the SQLPass.org website. Next slide, please. Next, I'd like to bring to your attention the upcoming PASS Summit. It takes place in Seattle, Washington from October 25th to the 28th. The PASS Summit this year features over 200 sessions with world-class data experts. It's the perfect place to network with experts and peers, and you can meet the Microsoft engineering team behind SQL Server 2016. You can save $200 on the registration to the event by using the exclusive discount code 24HOP200 before the end of Sunday, September 18th. And to find out more, please visit passsummit.com. Next slide. I would like to introduce Tara Shankar Jana. Tara is a Senior Technical Product Manager with Microsoft and has been working on relational database systems for over 10 years and cloud technologies for 4 years. He currently works with the C&E Cloud App Development and Data team. So, without further ado, I'll hand over the reins to Tara.
Hey, thanks so much for that introduction, Mindy. All right, so we're going to talk about Cloud App Dev Immersion. This is a program we have been working on for the last 4 months. We already have a Data Insight Immersion, which is available for IT pros. And keeping in mind the whole evolution of intelligent applications, modern applications, cloud-based applications, and keeping data in the epicenter of all of these modern generation applications, we have come up with a developer approach to building data-driven intelligent applications. So what is Immersion? Immersion is basically a hands-on experience with the latest technologies of Microsoft, whether it's SQL Server, big data, cloud-based technologies, anything with the dev tool side of things, DevOps, mobile app dev, which includes Xamarin. These are all kind of spun up environments hosted out of our own Azure subscriptions. As a user or a customer, you would get hands-on to real-world scenarios in live environments. Most of you are aware of TechNet virtual machines. You would have used those labs, but this is like completely built for the Azure experiences, so you don't have to go and create your subscriptions. What you would do is just go on, click on the specific virtual machine you are interested in doing a self-paced lab, if that's what it is. Like for the pre-con at PASS Summit, we'll be doing more instructor-led, so you all will get a pod to which you will connect to and do these labs. Okay. Some of the key areas we are focusing on as part of the immersion, and I'll move the slides in a moment, is DevOps. One of which we're going to talk about continuous integration, deployments, cross-platform support. There's mobile DevOps, which is a key part of that piece. So Cloud App Dev is the immersion track, and within that we have sub-tracks. Then we have mobile app development, cloud app application platform, and data for development. So the one which we are really going to get hands-on is data for development. And when we talk about that, there's a lot of pieces you would see, right? I mean, what we really want to give you guys is a lot of hands-on in building real-time applications. The session at Precon will be building an application sort of from scratch, like deploying it, adding these features, whether it's a modern cloud-based app and all the managed services comes into picture. There's a SQL Server developer-centric hands-on lab as well. So I'm going to give you all of those details today here. The idea of the session is to ensure that you have what you need in terms of coming for the pre-con, any questions you may have, and then once we go there for the 8 hours, we build 2 different applications using different Azure services and at the same time SQL Server. Okay, so keeping in mind this is very developer-centric, sort of an hands-on experience, so you will be playing a lot with Visual Studio, making changes to the code, making changes to your T-SQL statements, and kind of creating all the experience into the app as you go with this each and every scenario and a story within the lab. Okay, so let me show you what we have for you for the pre-con. You will be kind of working through 4 experiences. Hopefully the time is enough to do that. We have timed it well, ensuring that it all fits into the 8 hours time frame. So the first one is the experience on SQL Server 2016. This is everything built in this, what we use to mention that all the features that you want to have today to build a modern generation application, an intelligent application, it's all built into SQL Server. All right, so we have picked up the more developer-centric features which is required today to build these next generation applications. As you can see on the left side, we will be creating an application. I can give you a bit of a sneak peek on that app. It's going to be called as My Expenses. So it's going to be an enterprise-ready application which you would be building along with these feature sets of SQL Server 2016. The idea is not to highlight the feature because there's a lot of times a specific feature may not fit into an app. So we have been very careful in building this app based on the feature sets, which is very, very unique to SQL Server, where SQL Server's feature sets are completely highlighted in terms of its value prop. The left-hand side, you would be working a lot with Temporal. There will be in-memory tables. There will be real-time insights, so column store indexes and R services will come into picture, and in-memory technologies together. There is also a lot of the compliant database apps, which is all about always encrypted or dynamic data masking, rollup security. How do you go and build that into an app, and why it's required for custom isolation, etc. And then when you have a lot of data which is coming in to your online database system, how do you go and stretch it to the cloud using, let's say, StretchDB? And then the power of JSON for making it more productive, the application. The experience too is going to be more about modernizing the whole app, right? So currently, any app is great, right? I mean, we all are building great apps. Most of them already have some amount of intelligence, but keeping in mind that R is available to SQL Server today and across all the editions, and given the fact that we are highlighting that every single SQL Server should be considered as SQL everywhere, right? I mean, if you're using SQLDB, you should have the same feature sets to build your app. So keeping that in mind, R is one of our key areas of building intelligence into an app. So you will be adding R graphs, you will plot those, and then build that into the application, which is My Expenses, to probably do some anomaly detection or forecasting. The experience tools will also have re-architecting of your log workload for cloud. So whatever you build today, maybe a desktop-based app or a web-based app on-prem, and if there is a decision which you make. So the idea is not to kind of push anybody to go to the cloud. It's all about if there is a need, if you're trying to move to the cloud, how easy it is to move to the cloud. We will give you that sort of an experience with that particular lab. So we'll re-architect the same app using Azure services completely in the cloud. And then we'll also have the third and fourth experience, which is more about the SaaS-based applications. Here we will convert or move to a different app. So the app is all about bike stores, right? In a SaaS model, you have a SaaS provider and then you have tenants. So we'll have around 3 or 4 tenants who would be using the SaaS platform to sell their bikes, and then you'll have customers coming in. What you would see is real-time load generations, real-time activities. You will be building almost a real-time application in this particular lab as well. But the idea is you will add these features of SQLDB to kind of go and make that application more modern. All right, so the last piece is now once we evolve from SQL workloads from software to SaaS, which is happening in some of our customer environments, slowly, gradually, there is also the modernizing of the cloud-based web apps, right? So there's a lot of data which is document-like or JSON-based, and also at the same time needs massive scalability and also replication and partition scale and whatnot. But keeping in mind that there's specifications which are very, very schema-free, we want to give an option to store those data, let's say in DocumentDB, or maybe use the features from SQL Server's JSON capabilities. Then any application which is SaaS-based and it's like an e-commerce web app, it is not complete without the search. Search needs to be very powerful, so we add in the power of Azure Search into that scenario. And then we process any unstructured data or big data, I should say, using USQL. So you will be also doing a lot of Azure Data Lake sort of things. Last but not the least, in both these applications, mostly you'll be doing a lot of SQL Server Data Warehouse, or SQL Data Warehouse, I should say. So once the data gets a little bit more and starts growing your database warehouse itself, on-prem, then how do you kind of use an Azure data warehouse in the cloud to elastically grow, shrink, and whatnot, right? And then both of these solutions will have the visualization layer, which is extremely important to ensure that anyone who's looking at the data can take intelligent actions on top of that data. All right, so let me just quickly jump on to experiences, right? So the whole idea of creating an My Expenses applications, everyone can relate to it. You guys will be coming down to Past Summit, and some of them are like organizations-based or sponsored. So eventually, you all need to go back and do your expenses. It's a very relative application. We all use it in our organizations. But the whole idea is how do we make it more intelligent, right? And also add the features and productivity features of SQL 2016 to make it very unique and very, very easy to build. So in this session, what I'll give you is a bit of an insight to some of the features, given the time frame we have. And I'll take you through some of the deployment scripts we have already kind of used to deploy the experiences 3 and 4, which is all about the SaaS app. Okay. So here, My Expenses is a SaaS-based app as well. But then this is basically it's being sold by a specific vendor. On the back end, as a product, there's a lot of features being used. So what we're doing here is we are predicting expenses. We are recovering any entries which has been nullified or has some issues. Any expenses which is unusual, very important, we want to flag those. Very, very crucial because there's credit card information and other related stuff available to My Expenses. How do we secure that sensitive data and a lot more. How we have architected these labs is based on the whole app scenario, right? So there could be an app which is on-prem what we have taken into account is how do we bring in the open source piece into this whole equation and connect to the SQL Server pieces. So we do have, the DDS Node.js drivers today. We're creating a single page app, which is on AngularJS. So you will be playing a lot with these specific connected drivers too, plus the open source on the Visual Studio pieces and connect to the backend of SQL Server. But as you can see on the SQL Server side of things, those are the specific features we're using to build this app here. Okay. Last but not the least, the SSRS piece, which is the visualization layer. As you all know, that it has evolved pretty much like how Power BI looks, and also available in mobile devices, which is available in both online and offline versions. Right. So let me just give you a quick idea. Right. So whenever we talk about a scenario here, we are talking about a challenge, right? And that's what a developer would need to solve. So in this scenario, we have a user, right, of the My Expenses app submitting an expense report, and a manager receiving the expense report for approval or rejection. That's the scenario, right? Now, what happens is the user submits his report, but realizes soon after he's made a mistake, typing one of the expenses into the application, right? So this is what the challenge was. And then as a developer, we need to kind of solve that. So what we do is the user then makes a modification and resubmit a new expense report, right? And what happens is that, however, the record of the initial submission is now lost. And the manager can only see the corrected expense report since the incorrect submission has been replaced and was not recorded. The challenge was also that the manager should be able to see all submission, not just the modified version. So that's how we solve that particular problem with help of temporal. So when we have temporal, once a query is made to analyze the expense report, both data from the history table and the temporal table are pulled. This results kind of in a comprehensive expense report for the manager, who can see both the original and the expenses entry and the following correction, right? Now with temporal tables stuff, anybody who, like a user, now have an organized and streamlined way to see changes to expense report submissions, plus the manager gets a view of both the reports, whether he wants to reject one and kind of approve one of them. Just want to give you a quick idea that what is the challenge we will have in an app, and then how we build in these features using some of the rich features of SQL Server 2016 to create a modern generation application, right? Now, the other few pieces, like, as we go through this, right, there are a lot of scenarios you'll be doing, and then we will have a lab. So we will do a temporal lab, and the temporal lab is going to be all about adding temporal to this whole app. How I envision this is we will be doing a lot of the localhost of running localhost for the Visual Studio, so which means you'll be compiling that code after adding these features into the application, right? So you would see things in action, and then as soon as the T-SQL is built, you attach that to the whole app itself, and then go recompile. You would start seeing that a manager gets a better report and whatnot. So it's more real time, and you could see the features coming in together to build this great app. Okay. So similarly, we will have something for in-memory. We have most of you know what in-memory is, but then how do you use that in a real-time scenario, right? Or a real-world scenario, I should say. So I will just not probably pick that up at this stage. I will just kind of quickly move to some of the other aspects. So let's just kind of discuss the whole notion of intelligent applications, right? So let me just go and click on this guy and show you what it looks like. Right, so there are a lot of things. So once this application has been built and using the temporal features in memory and whatnot, and we've made it very secure, the next thing we really want to work on is how do we add intelligence to this app, right? So the notion of intelligence could be very broad, but how we define it today is using feedback loops. So as you can see on the screen, there are 3 feedback loops, which kind of helps us define what an intelligent app should look like. Transactions, as you all know, that when you are kind of working with an app, any transaction about whether you're reserving a resort or you're going or buying things, it's a transaction, right? You're just kind of working with the app. So that's a transactional loop, and then with implicit events, it's all about the data which has been accumulated, whether it's from sensors or from the previous movements or history which you might have had. So based on that, we can capture a lot of your details, and then recommend that what could be a really good option for you to go probably buy or whatnot. Explicit choices are more about, let's say you are in a resort, and then like a ski resort for an example, and now you want to go and dine somewhere, right? So we will go search for you the restaurants nearby, but also recommend another 4 or 5 different restaurants, which you all see in applications like Yelp, right? So that's an explicit loop. Keeping all those 3 loops in mind, we kind of develop our application code base, right? And then add that as the feature set to our applications to build intelligence. All right, so let me just give you a quick idea on the expense application itself. So, right, we all built that application, and now we have a scenario, right? The scenario is that in this app of my expenses, there is a potential risk of anomalies, right? And this could be an incorrect expense data kind of been inputted through a different sort of an app, right? And these system errors could be very challenging to kind of contain and then just solve them. Now, when you look at how we solve this, right? So the problem is, we write certain things. There's anomaly detection which needs to happen. We would have done different things in the past, but with our services, right? The best part is it'll be used to add some learning capabilities to this application, and then the R services provide kind of access to all the historical data to detect if a new expense might have an error on the amount, right? So as a user, when you are inputting the amount of a new expense, the app will warn you if the amount is too high or too low or compared with the other similar expenses. So it's just more of an anomaly detection for the manager who's approving it and for the user as well, in a way to kind of work with the app in an intelligent way, right? So as a manager, if you remember the whole scenario, the application will warn you when you receive for approval a report containing an unusual expense, right? So we would pick that scenario out of recommendations anomaly, but this kind of worked well because this is pretty common to happen. All right, so some of these solutions here, and I'll just jump into the experience 3 and 4 and give you a quick glimpse of the portal, what you're going to deploy, how the resource script's going to look like, and then also what we are building. I'll show you some of the aspects of workload insights and query performance insight, which will give you some clue on how to tune queries, plus at the same time write better queries. So let me just stop for a moment and ask Mindy if there is any question for me here.
Nope, no questions right now.
Sure. So let me just move on to these guys here. Right. So the experience 3 is all about, as we discussed initially, evolving SQL workloads from software to SaaS. All right. So what we're doing here is we are working with a SaaS app, and it's all about selling bikes, as I mentioned initially. But the notion is to ensure that we build multi-tenant applications with customer isolation and efficiency. This can be achieved using Azure SQL database in the cloud, which is our intelligent database in the cloud. Some of the things which we really want to highlight in this particular app, so you'll be building this app, right, is to manage any unpredictable usage patterns for multiple databases, which is very common in a multi-tenant application. Automatically fine-tune database performances, for manageability. Like, we don't have to go run tools. You will still do the analysis. So like as a DBA, you need to still go and look out for recommendations, validate it, execute it, and whatnot. But you don't have to go run 100 different tools or automate your scripts to figure out, what are the missing indexes, or whether there's a statistics missing, or you have to drop an index and whatnot. So it's all been kind of built into the SQL DB. And what it gives you is, a lot of peace in terms of writing better apps and at the same time helping you with solving your problems pretty quickly, right? So like the focus is more on fixing the problem than just running certain tools to kind of gather data. So we run the telemetry for you on the backend in Azure systems to ensure that all these recommendations come in fine. And last but not the least is to flag potential threats to security, right? So if there is one, we will just go flag it. Let me give you the idea of what's happening here. So we're building a multi-tenant app called Adventure Work Bikes. Now the developer has already kind of pulled the application up. It's looking good. And there are different vendors, we have named them Store 1, 2, 3, and 4, who are tenants to the SaaS app called Adventure Work Bikes. Okay. Now, as the time changes, and with time, what happens is, each store, which has got pretty high demand during, let's say, peak seasons, and they are pretty varied and unpredictable. So how do we kind of solve that sort of a challenge? You know that it's in a SaaS model. There are multiple tenants. Having a single tenant is awesome, but then for a vendor or for a SaaS provider like AdventureWorks, that could be pretty expensive. So that's one challenge. But then the second challenge is in a multi-tenant scenario or database system, there's also the changes we need to make. The best part is with multi-tenant applications is because you're using a theme, the schema is pretty much the same across databases, right? So that kind of helps us with solving the challenge somehow, and that's why we build certain technologies in Azure SQL DB to help you with solving a challenge like how do you manage thousands and hundred thousands of databases in one go. So these are like two challenges we're trying to highlight. Pretty important and very critical to any SaaS app or SaaS provider. So when I go next, we're going to solve the problem. How to solve the problem today is we have a capability in Azure SQL DB called Elastic Pools, right? And then we have Elastic Jobs where you could run certain scripts across all the databases in the pool. What is an Elastic Pool? As I was showing you that we have multiple tenants. Let's imagine thousands of databases are available to this particular SaaS provider, right? There are a lot of examples of such web e-commerce applications today which are SaaS-based. And then the point is that some of them gets really hit badly, so there's a lot of performance impact. And then how do we solve that? So there are options. You all know, or most of you, if you have worked with SQL DB in cloud, is that you can move your tiers. You have a basic tier, you've got a standard, you've got premium. Within basic, you have got B0, B1, then you have in standard S0, S1, S2, S3, similarly B up to B11, right? And they all have different capacities, and they all work on different DTUs, which is database throughput unit or transaction unit. And that will help you kind of at least move your database's capacity to a higher extent. But think or imagine how much of a load it will be for, or from a the total cost of ownership perspective for AdventureWorks Bikes. Pretty huge. So how do we solve this problem? What we do is we create a pool. The pool has its own pricing standard, so you have a basic pool, standard, and premium, depending on the workloads you need. And then add all of these databases together as part of the pool. So as you can see, that those 4 stores we had, right? All those 4 stores data or databases are now in part of the pool. Eventually, doesn't matter. Like if you have a lot of peak and load on the first 2 databases, but not so much on the second or the third or the fourth. Eventually, what you could do is, or the pool does for you, is to kind of automatically manage the resources. Think about resource groups or resource pools in SQL Server. Kind of very close to that, but completely managed internally. Best part, you can also move the databases out of the pool without any downtime or any issue as such. Also, if there is a pool exhaustion based on, let's say, the tier was not enough, you can move tiers. You can move certain databases to another Elastic pool. You can also replicate the databases from one Elastic pool to another in different geographic region as such. All right, so that was just one of the challenges here we're trying to solve. The second one is with security in a multi-tenant app. Very important that there will be certain custom isolation which we need to achieve, right? But also there are performance issues with the query which can come in. That's important to solve. And at the same time, there's a continued need to improve the performance, plus solve any loopholes with security. So those are the true deals sitting in between on hackers. They can actually consume that data and pretty much impact the system. So there's SQL injections, which you all know. We need to think about how do we write our applications better so that we can help not have SQL injections coming into the database. But what if we have, or we have to proactively manage? Then we have things like threat detection, right, which is built into SQLDB. Can help you with doing threat detections directly out of the databases. So those are the challenges. And this will be the model which we will be following. So during the pre-con, we'll go through each challenge, think about the solution, and then build a solution in the lab. So that's the whole flow of this particular session at pre-con. Now, when we try to solve it, best part, right, for threat detection, we do have an option to enable threat detection on the database level. And once you enable that, every single time there is a SQL injection, the SQLDB will throw back an email to your registered email addresses. Maybe it's for your admin who's managing the database, or to the dev who's kind of working on the database. Could be anybody. And you can add multiple email addresses there. You get notified and you go and solve the problem. And for the query performance insight, we'll look into each and every query. So what we've done is, as part of this lab, we have built a lot of web jobs for you. So you go run the web job and it starts putting in a lot of load. So we're running a lot of query against the database itself. And what happens is you kind of go and analyze, what queries are really not performing well. So, high spikes, more CPU, more memory, and then as a DBA, which you used to do to kind of go tune the queries, you would still do that, right? So you just will get the queries being automatically registered for you, and the top notch, like let's say top 10 high CPU or high memory queries will be registered for you in the query performance insight tab. The index advisor will also give you a lot of high impact indexes, and what we've done is in the lab we have built that ecosystem for you. So while you kind of go through the lab, certainly we're running that load, and you would be able to see the indexes and the recommendations. Let me stop here for a second and let me just take you through this experience on the virtual machine, how it looks like. So for the immersion program, as you can see, I'm already running the Elastic pools. You won't be kind of deploying this directly. What we do is just to save a lot of our time. We pre-deploy most of these assets, but then the code will be available to you. So we have done an ARM to kind of package the whole solution. So maybe once you're back, this will be all available on GitHub. You could download and just do it again yourself. But also, most of these labs will be available in self-paced mode. After maybe the pre-con, we're still working on that piece, and then you can just use those either ways it works. But if you really want to know how the code looks, what we have done, how we play with it, how we have armed it, all of that would be available. So we will make sure that this is completely available to the GitHub, and anyone can use it. Okay, that's probably the process we will go and evolve and start putting things up probably around the December, January timeframe once it's all been kind of confirmed. The second piece is that, so once you deploy that ARM, this takes around, let's say, I think 5 minutes. And then we run the create sample data. So there's also a lot of sample data. We will just go create that. Takes around 10 minutes. So around in 15 minutes, your environment is completely set up and ready to go. This is either the resources gets built when you run the ARM templates. And then as you could see that we have a SQLDB, we have the authentication database, then all the stores, right, the tenants. And then we have search, we have DocumentDB, the website itself, right? And basically what you will be building and doing is you will be running the localhost, right? So you'll be recompiling the code after making changes right from here. And also we'll be playing a lot with the portal, plus you will be looking at the app. So for an example, here's what you will be building during the labs at TrayCon. This is the site which you will see as your end product. right? So as you can see, this is like, and 4 different bike stores are selling their bikes out of their own as tenants to AdventureWorks. So wherever you go, there are a lot of featured bikes, there's new arrivals, there's trends. But remember, we are doing all of these. This is Azure Web Services, and then we have all of this data coming out of DocDB, SQLDB. There's search, which will kind of build on top of SQLDB and DocDB to kind of search for data and transactions. Right, so just to give you an experience, this is what it looks like. Let me just kind of try to put the password and show you what happens when you log in as an admin and the store admin, right? So that's important to see what the trends are, what's happening there, and that doesn't let me put the password like that, so I'll have to write the store again. Right, and then you could now see all the orders and invoices, the customers. So there's this web admin piece, and then as you could see, we have a credit card information which is currently available in clear text. How do we add in dynamic data masking? Do always encrypt it. All of that will be built, and then every time you recompile, you would see the changes happening to the app. Okay, so I just want to give you that sort of an insight that this is what it will look like in real time when the whole application has been built on the day of pre-con, right? There are a lot of other things. So like once we start doing most of these labs, a few of the things which really excites me, especially as a database guy, is the things like workload insights. So you would get your hands on in doing things like these. So once you click on the database, which is your stores database, or it could be any database on which you're running the workload insights and trying to manage, what Microsoft does or Azure does is it actually runs a telemetry check and accumulates all your data set, given the fact that these are very sophisticated algorithms been written on the backend. All the data has been kind of consumed, and then we start making recommendations, right? So as I was saying initially, that a lot of our time would be now spent in doing the actual work rather than just collecting data. So this is trusted data coming out of the similar tools we probably have used, but very, very highly managed and very scalable and elastic. So when you see this right here, the top thing or the particular highlight says that how do you improve your database performance, right? So you can click on this and it will give you a lot of recommendations, right? You have, whether you have to create an index, which is ion impact or medium impact or whatever it may be, right? And then you have a lot of other information here about your performance as such, right? Some of them you could see that we have already executed, so all of that goes into your tuning history. Then best part is if you have to create an index, you won't just create an index, you just have to go there first to see whether it's really something you need to create, right? It's a recommendation from the engine. We think it is very important, it's critical, but as a DBA, as a developer, you still need to go validate the index. Now you could see here what's the impact, how much is space needed and whatnot. We will give you that sort of an insight during the pre-con, that what these specific tool sets does for you while you work with them. So there'll be a lot of insight given, but I'm just kind of giving you a clue that what you might be working that day during the pre-con. So you can view the script, as a tool set, copy it, run it from SSMS, or you can run it directly from here. There's an option to go apply, and that's why you still have a lot of work to do as a database professional when you're even working with cloud. So it's still an intelligent cloud database does a lot of work for you, but recommendations and application of those recommendations are still something we need to do manually. All right. Next piece in this whole thing is about the challenges we have for making this application grow further and making it bigger and better, right? So the next experience you would see as part of this Immersion program, and you would be building as part of the web app. So currently we built the app. We use SQLDB to store all our transactions. We are using that for pools, for the SaaS model to be completely elastic and scalable, security which is inbuilt, performance, And then the other things come in, like the bike's parts, specifications, sizing of a rim or whatever it may be. Very particular about buying a certain specific tire or whatever it may be. So those not those specifications are not very schema agnostic. So eventually you have to figure out a store which can help you with storing schema-free data. And as it's in the cloud, certainly the biggest piece there is the DocumentDB. So we could definitely use the features of DocumentDB. It's a great product. And if you're running in SQL Server in virtual machines, you could use JSON, but it can also integrate things with DocumentDB. It's a very interesting ecosystem. What we're trying to achieve is, any data can be stored anywhere. If it's SQL Server, any version of SQL Server, SQL DB. So the whole idea is to ensure that all the feature sets are available. And similarly, if there is a need of DocumentDB to be used, we will use that. Whether it's an IoT scenario, whether it's for a web-based app, it's more about being realistic that what workload will work better, because DocumentDB or a NoSQL stack is very, very scalable. It's huge. The partition scale is tremendously big. So keeping all that in mind, we have kind of added certain pieces of DocumentDB search into this app, right? So so there's some diverse schema. There's some throughput stuff for across geographical regions, which is the challenge we want to highlight. With DocumentDB, what happens is we can keep a lot of our document collections in JSON format, right? Because that's a schema, a non-schema structure we use. And as there's a dynamic schema which is ever changing, we need to figure out a way, and that's why we're using DocumentDB in this application. But on top of that, we also want to use things like partition scale. If we have to partition the database today, even though it's not the most recommended approach most of the times, but a lot of organizations, companies are using it, and it's understood why. So that's why DocumentDB also gives you a lot of partition scale. So we will be building this during the labs, at pre-con. Similarly, the stores could be, across the world, and that's one of the pieces you would see while building the lab. That some of the stores are in the US, there's some of them in New Zealand. How do you ensure that there is configuration data by region, right? And as we're talking about specific store and data types and collections or schema-free data, it's very important that a store like DocumentDB is good enough to kind of regionally distribute the data set or have geodatabases, right? So and it is possible. So we will be building this and trying our hands on and doing bounded stainless sort of consistency, which is a property of DocumentDB, and then how do we globally replicate databases, plus the multiple region databases and its capability to reduce your throughput. So increase your throughput, but reduce your latency across different geographic regions. So I mean, there's a lot of things we'll be doing to just build this into the app. As I was saying, no app is, or at least no web e-commerce app is complete without search. Azure Search will be built here as part of these labs. So in scenario 4.2, we'll add search. How search works is search actually consumes data out of, let's say, SQLDB, DocDB, or other different storage areas. Currently, these are the two major storage areas from which search can consume data. And search has its own catalog, which is completely cached. So eventually, it pulls the data from DocumentDB and then runs its own indexer. So we build an indexer, and then just keep looking at the data set from DocumentDB. You can run the search on the index catalog on schedule. So the indexer runs on a schedule to pull the data from DocumentDB or let's say SQLDB, and then you can keep building the search catalog, right? And as a refresh occurs, and the new data set comes in. But there are a lot of features in search like facets, suggesters. There's also language support, like around 56 plus different languages are supported using search today. So it's a pretty big managed service we have running in the cloud. Now you could see the challenges here. You're looking for accuracy, which could be search results, but they're not completely well sorted. The facets or the filtering is not great. There's also scoring profiles. Some of the times a bike might be selling really well in a store, but doesn't show up in the top of the list. So all of that is built using certain search technologies. Every organization, every other e-commerce site is doing that. But how do we add that to our website, which we're going to build at Precon, and then we'll pull in the Azure search pieces. So we'll do a lot of code changes and then build in the search catalogs and run the indexer and whatnot to give you more hands-on experience with that. So the solution is, we can do scoring profile to, get better our searches. There's also the scaling, right? So which is tremendously high. We have synonym support. If you're looking for anything as such, which is like a unicycle, you can have a synonym which gets added, and then it can start giving you more data about certain specific type of bikes, right? But the whole idea is to increase the scale and capacity. And as I mentioned, right, some of the so this is the synonym space, and then you can look out for different search functions, and then you have the language support, which is 56 plus or so in search, right? Then we have the analytics platform. So for Azure Data Lake, we're consuming a lot of IIS logs and storing that in Data Lake. There's some challenges with ongoing support and resources for analytics, right? And that's where things like Data Lake Store, which has its own analytics store as well. The best part is you have query language like USQL, which we will be using in the lab to query data across Data Lake Store, which has been coming out of IIS logs generated out of these applications, right? Last but not the least, we will be building an Azure Data Warehouse solution. The challenge is, there will be a limitation in storing non-relational data or any other data when you are on-prem, right? So if the capacity is kind of fixed, so what do we do about it? And eventually the solution is to try out, Azure Data Warehouse or SQL Data Warehouse. Basically, you have the poly-based support, which can help you with, querying a relational and non-relational data set through DSQL. But at the same time, you could store all of your data in SQL Data Warehouse and be completely free of any sort of tensions as such, because you can auto grow and shrink. So, the data warehouse is working based on your needs. And on top of that, you can create any visualization layer, which helps you with taking recommendations and consuming that data in a better way, right? So that was just a quick overview. There's a lot more, but just want to give you that context that this is what we will be doing. So there's a lot of hands-on, less talking during presentations, but it'll be more about with me, we'll be having the engineering team, so that any questions you may have about implementing or making changes, whether it's SQL Server, whether it's Azure databases, DocumentDB, it could be any of the scenarios you're working with. So we'll have a lot of people coming in helping us with getting more understanding of these feature sets and their addition and application in an application which is modern generation. But the notion of intelligent apps is very important, and we want to kind of ensure that in a modern world, intelligent applications which are very data-driven are kind of consumed in the right way and then created, which helps any organization to take better actions much in advance, right? Any questions so far, Lindy, on this session?
There were a number of questions. People, of course, were asking if the slides would be available. I told them that they would be available on the PASS website, but there were questions about the scripts that you were showing, if they would be available.
So, as I was saying during the session, we would definitely try to get all this code base out to GitHub. Certainly at this stage, where we have kind of finished experiences 3 and 4. Experiences 1 and 2 are being built, and they will be ready. As soon as they all get ready, we go through the pre-con. After that, these scripts and all the code base should be available to the users and attendees. We'll make sure it is available. But on top of that, I really want to highlight that Immersion platform is completely automated, built out of a big, huge platform, which means there's a lot of tons of resources. And also when the attendee comes in and tries a subscription, they don't have to create a subscription. Everything is built in, everything is pre-deployed. But then the point is the code base and the scripts the demo scripts, the lab scripts, we will ensure that it's available after the event even in GitHub. Plus, in Immersion, you have a self-paced lab. So in case you don't want to go and set up the whole thing, which I will encourage that you must go and try the set of documents to deploy an ARM template in Azure or run a complete ARM template for SQL Server deployment. But then you will also have the self-paced version of the labs available to you from the Immersion website. If you try Immersion today and let's say data platform, you will definitely hit that link. But remember, we're changing that website. We are adding more, different experiences to it. But in a nutshell, just to answer the question, yes, these resources and scripts and the code base will be available at GitHub once this session gets over.
Great. Great. And that was the website he's referring to. Someone was asking, what is the website that you're referring to? So they go to GitHub and they would search for what once they went there?
That's a good question. So let me see what best I could do. So let me do this. Let me show them two things. One is, I think I can show this. I don't think that should be an issue. The only thing is that I have so many links open. So let me just, can I just kind of stop the presentation for a moment or just pause the screen and then just kind of pull up that link and then show you. I don't know if you can see my desktop yet, but I've kind of paused the screen, guys, for a second or two. So let me just show you that experience, how it looks like, and then we can just take it from there. Yeah, we're just building the new platform, so just be doubly sure that we have it here. Okay, so let me just start my screen again. So if you could see the screen now, this is what things will look like. I would not encourage right now anyone to go here, but it's just because it's going to go live in some time. We're building this new look and feel. Okay, so there's going to be self-paced labs. There's, as you can see right here, but then there's also virtual classes. There are instructor-led classes. There's a lot of things which will be can be used by your partner, customer, or the Microsoft employees to kind of register for different courses. But this is what it's going to look like. So this is a website where you will have most of it. But then what I was talking about is if you need the scripts, because this is like all self-paced labs. You click on it, everything is pre-deployed and you just start off. But then we have been discussing internally that how do we make our code available to all the audiences. So the idea is we'll create a GitHub and push all the code base, the scripts and everything to GitHub and then share that link with you guys. We're not sure when that will be ready, but we're expecting at least by pre-con, if we have that ready, then we can share it with you all. Because we're still working on, at least for data for development, we're still working with experiences 1 and 2, and for that the scripts are yet to be built. Okay, so but that's how the site will look like. That's where you would do your self-paced labs and stuff. And then the experiences.
Right. One more question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It looks like the website, they would need, eventually they're going to need to search for Microsoft Cloud Platform Immersion, and they would find it through that. The other question is, someone said that they're interested in participating in the pre-con, but they're concerned. They're an experienced SQL Server DBA, but they have no hands-on experience in other areas. So what prerequisites would you expect for someone to have as far as knowledge coming into this pre-con to be successful?
Oh, just SQL knowledge, and if they even haven't played with Azure much, it's okay, because what we have done is the way we have structured the course and the labs, you would start from the basics. Like if we are doing a SQL, I should say a search lab or document DB, we won't let you kind of start doing just partition scales. We will start from what a collection looks like, so you will play with collections, you will see what a document DB a query explorer looks like. So there's a lot of part of the lab which is completely driven in terms of being more educational. So just come in and have an experience. The best part, as I was saying, that we will be around to kind of discuss and help you set up. So whether the engineering team, product group, myself, we'll just make sure that the concepts are kind of highlighted as you go through the lab. But the structure of the lab is going to be such that you won't need a lot of background in Azure or in cloud or in specific feature sets in Azure. You can just come in and you can just start working with the lab. There's a lot of instructional information we have created. So why document DB, what it's used for. So there's a lot of education which goes along with the lab. So I hope that answers the question. But I would suggest this is going to be a very, very deep hands-on labs, which means you will get to do a lot of stuff building this application, adding these feature sets. I would highly encourage that most of you should come and join us because this is a very different sort of an experience of its kind. We haven't done this much in the past, and Immersion has been growing because of this, that we don't just go through presentations, but you, like all the 8 hours, including the lunch piece, you will be doing just hands-on labs, end to end. Does that help?
Great.
Okay.
Yes, that was the last question.
Sure.
And I think we're pretty good. We're coming up on the very end.
Sure.
So do you have any contact information, or they can go get I guess they can get that from the presentation that will be posted also?
Yeah, I mean, you can write to me. My LinkedIn profile or my Twitter is completely updated, but then you guys can write to me at Tara Shah. This my first name T-A-R-A and S-H-A. My second name's first 3 initials at Microsoft.com. Please help us with any feedback you may have, just not about the session or what we're going to be building at Precon, but about the product itself. For me, I've been working on the SQL Server developer pieces for this year and also the Azure Data Services. I'm more than happy to tackle any question and help evaluate anything which you guys need in terms of help building solution architectures and whatnot. So just don't worry, reach out to us, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, that concludes the presentation for this hour. Coming up next, we have Guy Glancer is going to be talking about from XML to JSON. So we'll be closing this session down, and if you're attending the next session, you'll need to go in on the link that you'll be getting with your RSVP or through the PASS website. And thank you so much, Tara.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mindy, for arranging this, and thanks so much, each one of you, for attending, and I hope to see you all at Precon. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.